this week, I am making a paint by numbers cake. I mean, you see the trend a lot of what they call the cartoon cakes. So what I'm going to do is make a black and white tiered cakes, and then I'm gonna color it in, or paint it in rather, with food coloring. I also made this cake for Reese Witherspoon's birthday. Not that I was gonna give it to her, but it was her birthday, and I know that she likes color by numbers. I know this because when I went to the Hello Sunshine Shine Away event, we all got like a color by numbers poster, which reminds me I gotta get on that. So my thoughts on the inside of the cake were, I'm gonna make it chocolate and vanilla layers alternating, and then I'm gonna put different color buttercream inside. Even though you're gonna see that now, that will be covered by black and white, and you'll forget. It's kind of like a surprise inside, even though you know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? If you went to a party and you cut this cake, you wouldn't know what was inside. Now it's time to color some buttercream. I made 4 colors. One is kind of like a deep coral color. I also made a teal, a hot pink. Boy, was it hot. And then I made a purple. Now that I have everything ready, it's time to fill and stack my cakes. However you start your cake, just remember to alternate the layers. So if you start with vanilla on the bottom, it's chocolate, then vanilla, then chocolate, and so on. The order of the buttercream the same all the way up the cake, because this would be tiered. You guys know this part. I'm trying to get you to the stacking and the painting part, the fun part. But the inside matters too. So now that all 3 cakes are filled and stacked, I'm going to crumb coat the outside with Italian meringue buttercream, all 3 cakes. Once they're chilled, you know what I'm gonna do. I'm going to ice them all, and I'm going to use a bench scraper to ensure that I have nice straight sides. I'm gonna use my straight spatula to make sure I have a nice crisp edge. And once all cakes are iced, again, they go in the fridge to chill. So I'm gonna cover all 3 tiers with white fondant. Of course, always measure your cake up one side, across the top, down the bottom side, so that you know how large to roll your circle of fondant. I ordered my favorite fondant. It didn't come. We apparently got a notice that it tried to be delivered. We never saw the notice. And I was like, where's my fondant? So it's at Canada Post. So they're having a great time decorating cakes. Now I have 3 perfectly white cakes, and I have to dress them up. I am gonna address some of the cracking. So I just got some royal icing and I filled in those cracks. But then you know what I realized after I did it? Where the royal icing is not technically gonna be the exact same finish as the rest of the fondant, and I think that's gonna be very noticeable when I paint. I'm going to cover that with my design. It's called camouflage. So I've decided that for the bottom tier, I want a heart pattern. I can use cutters to help me create that pattern. But I do want all the black details on this cake. I loaded my clay extruder with some black fondant. I extruded some black cords, and then what I did is I wrapped them around my heart-shaped cookie cutters. I used a dry paintbrush to help like push them into the groove, and then I sort of trimmed the fondant. And I was just creating these sort of outlines of 3 different sizes of hearts.
Cool.
It was cool. It was a bit tricky, and at this point I love it, but I was nervous about how I'd pick them up and put them on the cake. So after I made those heart outlines, I popped that board in the fridge so that they could harden a bit. Now the second cake, this is the one where there was a lot of patching. It's the tallest cake. What I've decided to do is make it look like it has a drip, but with fondant. I rolled out a very thin sheet of white fondant. I put the same size cake pan that I baked the cake in. I put this on a cake board, and I used my paring knife, and freehand I just cut like, what do I call that? Okay, Orhan just went to look at the cake, and we've decided that I cut waves. I just had to wet the surface of the fondant just a little bit, especially at the top edge, and then I have to pick it up, carefully place it on the cake, and then let those waves hang down. I wanted to outline that wave that I just created. So what did I do? I flipped the cake over.
Oh, because they're pieces now, they're not combined yet.
Yeah, each cake is separate.
For a moment I imagined you flipping over.
Oh, no. You will not see that on this channel. So I flipped the cake over.
Unless we get 1,000. If you want to see Yolanda flip over a 3-tiered cake, subscribe to this video.
You know it will happen. And then I just had to wet the top of each wave with a little bit of water and lay that cord in the wave. And just like with the heart, I used a dry paintbrush to help me get it in the grooves. Any area that's smaller than your finger, you can always use a dry paintbrush. Now for the top tier, I decided I wanted to make stripes, but not perfect stripes. So I wrapped my fabric measuring tape. I made a mark every 1.5 inches. And then freeform, I just painted lines, different squiggly lines on with water. So first I laid a border down at the bottom of the cake and then picked up a cord of extruded fondant and laid it on, knowing it would stick to where I had brushed the water, all the way up and all the way around. And then I took that border away and I trimmed all the lines at the top of the cake. But the bottom tier, even though I made the hearts, I haven't put them on the cake yet. So I have to bring out my biggest cake. I used my fabric measuring tape to mark 8 sections perfectly. And then I had to line up the heart. So I did 3 sizes of heart. I alternated a large heart, a medium heart, a large heart, a medium heart, all the way around. And then the small hearts I put in the middle of the large hearts.
Aww.
So now all 3 cakes have an outline and it's time to tier them. I was gonna tier this cake on my favorite yellow cake stand. But as I was cutting my dowels to prepare for the next tier, don't I notice that the cake stand is not level? So the cake was shifting back. So I had to unscrew it. Thankfully, I used a cake stand where the pedestal comes off the plate. So I lifted the cake, Eli unscrewed it, and then I had to place that plate on top of another plate to secure it. I'm just glad I did it before I tiered the whole cake. And you know what, it's probably better because this cake was tall in the end. So imagine it was on a stand too. It would have been super tall. Top cake, I had a plan for this. So you know in my cake of cakes, the top cake is a slice of cake and like a little cupcake. I decided to do the slice of cake thing, but I want the slice of cake to be an actual slice of cake. Because when the cake is colorful, then you'll see that, remember the interior, the chocolate, the vanilla, and the colored buttercream. So what I have to do is place a plate on top of the cake. So when I prepped all the cakes, I prepped an extra cake and it was the same size as the top tier, but it was 1 more layer so I can get all 4 colors of buttercream inside. And then when I covered the cakes with fondant, I just rolled like a band and covered up the back, up the top, because I'm gonna cut a slice out of it. The part where the fondant needs a design as well. So for this, I decided on flowers, sort of growing up the side. So because I have like gum paste flower cutters, I did the same thing I did with the heart cutters. I extruded my black cords of fondant and wrapped it around 2 daisy cutters I had. The hardest part was I wanted to make a center for one of the daisies, and then I carefully glued them to the side of the cake slice. It was very cute. Very cute. So at this point, it's just a black and white cake with a plate on top, but it still looks cool. I know, it looked really good. It's not black and white anymore because I painted this cake.
Well, joke's on you, because the rest of this edit will be like
That'd be so good. Okay, this is not sponsored. This was sent to me by my friends at Color Mill. The complete collection of their oil colors.
I kind of want to like paint now.
I'm actually upset that I had to open them. I love the sort of opaque quality of the oil blends. So that's what I decided, plus I had a whole palette to choose from. Yeah, I just got started. I still think about it. Once for my birthday, I got this kit that looked like a little briefcase, but when you opened it, both sides were just crayons.
Nice.
I think about it all the time. Leave a comment below. Is there like, did you have like a favorite art kit? Maybe you have one now. It doesn't have to be when you were a kid. Or maybe you are a kid, yep. There's a good chance you're a kid. So to paint with oil color, this is what you'll need. A palette, some bowls. I had a cup of clear food grade alcohol, which was vodka. I had a dropper for that vodka because I didn't want to dilute the paint so much that it would drip down the cake. Be very careful of that. And then I'm going to use the white from the set as well, and this will alter and lighten the colors if I need to. And then you need a whole bunch of brushes. I started by painting in the hearts. I chose pinks. And I decided that all the swirly lines on the top cake would each be a different color. So whatever color I use on the cake, I'm gonna paint a stripe to represent that color. Then I painted the drip. And for the drip, I also chose pink. Now I think I'm gonna paint the body of the middle cake yellow, but I don't want it to be just flat, because the tricky thing about paint on cake is, my brushes, I'm gonna be honest, my brushes are not top quality, and I didn't want to see brush strokes. So another thing you can use is a sponge, like a makeup sponge. So what I did is I painted on the yellow, used a sponge to stipple it out, and then I mixed a bit of the coral and dabbed it here and there and sponged it as well. I made a joke to Eli that I was like Debbie Travis. If you're Canadian and you watched like late 90s, early 2000s Reno TV, you know exactly who I'm talking about. But my point is, the fun thing about painting a cake is not only can you play with colors, you can play with the texture of the paint too. The hardest part about painting this cake, especially because I chose the oil paints, was not getting them on the black lines, which I failed to do. Guys, leave a comment below. Let me know who you're gonna make this cake for, and if you're gonna make it at all. If you make it, then post it and tag me. And I will see you next week, and hopefully I'll be better. Where's my tea?